What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here at Edit Media in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. How you doing this morning, Dakota?
I'm incredible, Tyler. You always make me laugh, man.
I know it. Well, I'll try to do my best.
You do a great job.
Well, you want to introduce our guest to us this morning?
Today we have special guest Preston Gordon, CEO of U.S. Industrial Machinery. Preston, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Glad to have you. And what are we sipping on this morning?
Today we're sipping on Monk's Road. Now, many of our hardcore listeners out there are probably thinking, you guys have already done Monk's Road. But no, there are 3 different kinds of Monk's Road. We have done 2. This is the 3rd one. It is their straight rye whiskey.
So I like it. You know, I'm not a huge rye fan.
Yes.
But for a rye, this is very good.
Okay.
And a lot of people are going to be surprised here, but I'm going to give this a 9.0, even if I was rating it up against bourbons.
Wow.
So very good.
Very
Monk's
impressive.
Road always makes a great product, but you know who also sells a better product? Cheers Vineyard in Gluckstadt, Mississippi.
They do.
You like how I did that?
Yeah. So they sell whiskey?
They sell whiskey, vodka, wine,
Wow.
gin,
Okay.
tequila,
Fantastic.
anything you can think of. If you're looking to buy some alcohol and you need it in Jackson, Mississippi,
Want it?
need it.
Okay.
Check out Cheers Vineyard.
You got it.
Well,
What's the proof on that, you think?
ooh, that was a 98
100.
proof, so pretty
Good
close
job.
there. Well, Preston, we appreciate you coming on this morning. We like to always start this, kind of give our listeners your background, where
Sure.
you grew up, and then how you made it to the industry that you're in now.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me, guys. I started my life in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm still here. I left briefly to attend the University of Mississippi, hotty toddy, for all you rebels out there. Grew up here, White Station High School, then Ole Miss. I moved back here to see if a girlfriend would pan out. And I about had my bags packed for Nashville, Tennessee. But I was dating a girl here at Rhodes College, and she had 2 years left. And we have 3 great children together now, and happily married. We've got our 5-year-old Eloise, our 2-year-old Bond, and we've got a newborn at the house, which has been challenging with my newer role at U.S. Industrial. Not a lot of sleep going on at the Gordon household right now. But as far as background and career, after Ole Miss, man, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And to be honest with you, I kind of felt like I was the only one that hadn't figured that out, you know, in my group of peers. Yeah. I mean, later in life, I kind of know now that, like, everybody's kind of everybody's in the same
No one had it figured out.
Yeah, right. But at the time, I felt like I was the only one that didn't know what I wanted to do. I majored in business administration, minor in management, and as far as my first foray in working outside of just kind of odd jobs that I had previously before college, I went to work at Enterprise Rental Car.
My gosh.
I know their management trainee program, they sell pretty hard, and it wasn't. I'll never speak poorly of any job I've had, because I learned something from each one. What I learned there was I didn't want to do that, and I outgrew that pretty quick. Then I went into liquor and wine sales and was basically selling to country clubs, on-premise restaurants, things like that. Outgrew that pretty quickly as well, but learned a ton about wine there, and that's where I really got my passion for wine. Then I went on to sell bonds and manage banks' investment portfolios at Duncan Williams.
Oh, because that's a transferable skill, wine sales into bonds, right?
Right. I've basically gone into everything I've done. I've kind of just gone into and not known anything about it. So I didn't know what. I remember about to be interviewing at Duncan Williams, and I went to my dad and I was like, Dad, this is a big opportunity.
Yeah.
But I don't know what a bond is and like how it works. And my dad gave me the basics of, you know, stocks versus bonds, you know, equity versus debt. And went to the interview at Duncan Williams, and I just said, look, man, I'm a hell of a salesperson. If you teach me about your product, I'll sell the hell out of it. And that, I guess, impressed them for some reason. And they hired me, stuck me on the phone. The training really what didn't happen that they said would happen. But they basically throw you out there and they give you a list of 300 banks and start calling and just figure it out. But I did that for 4.5 years and was pretty successful at that. And then Marsh & McLennan, I believe it's still the United States' largest insurance agency, Fortune 500 company out of New York, recruited me. Did that for 2 years, and then my wife wanted to have some kids, and I was traveling too much, so I came back here and worked for the Wilson family that started the Holiday Inn hotel franchise. So I managed their book of business, the family, and then later kind of started running the commercial insurance division and had some salespeople under me. And then I started at U.S. Industrial. Got an opportunity to own a business, so I took it.
Yeah, great story, and I think
I don't know which industry to ask about.
Well, and I think a good thing though is, all the jobs that you had up until the point that you're at, like that makes you a very well-rounded person. You've touched the bond side of things, you've touched the insurance side of things, and then the sales. A lot of people forget in business, for a business to operate and to be successful, you've got to have sales, and you better have somebody that's good at sales, because all the other positions that come after that are usually pulled along by the sales team. So yeah,
Spoken by a true salesman.
And the reason I say that is there are a lot of people out there that are getting out of college or out of high school or community college or whatever it is, and they have no clue what they want to do. I would say, in your 20s, figure out what that is. Don't be scared to try different industries, because you may work somewhere for 2 years and absolutely realize, hey, I hate working at this company. You got plenty of time to figure out what it is you want to do. Before I got into insurance, I was actually a lineman. So, there are
like football?
Yeah, football lineman. But there are a ton of different things you can do. And I would say experience those things early on so you can figure out where you want to be at and where you want to land. So I think that is great for our listeners to hear that, your story of success, to get to your point that it was, you didn't know what you always wanted to do. And I think more times than not that people fall into that category.
It's one of those things where soft skills are the name of the game in sales, right? You've got to be able to talk to somebody. You've got to be able to empathize with somebody in certain aspects of it. You've got to be able to build relationships with people very quickly. If you're cold calling banks, you might be getting a different person every time because banks have high turnover.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to just be like, hey, I'm Jimmy now. I'm the new guy. And you're like, well, what's up, Jimmy? Let's start this off. Let's build a relationship. I'm here. Let's go to lunch or whatever. Yeah. So you've got to be able to do those kinds of things. So kudos to you for being able to do that.
Yeah. I think the biggest skill in the bond sales was just being able to take the word no. People hated bond salesmen.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like there was CFOs of banks were just getting lit up, on a daily basis by different bond brokers. So you heard the word no a lot.
Yeah.
And you had to figure out how to pivot and just deal with it.
Yeah. There was a time, back in like the 70s or 80s maybe, where the bond salesmen were just the cream of the crop. Like if you were in bond sales, it was just super easy. You just flushing them out. It was like a fire hydrant. You couldn't get them out the door fast enough. But nowadays, it's a tough business.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about going from working in the corporation to the person that's making the decisions. What was that transition like for you?
You mean when I started at U.S. Industrial and now where I am at U.S. Industrial? So my transition to U.S. Industrial was kind of an interesting one. So I've always wanted to own my own business, and I just didn't know, kind of like back in college, I didn't know what business I wanted to be in. And actually, I really didn't. Saying I didn't care is probably the wrong terminology, but I really didn't. I didn't care what business it was. Businesses are the same as long as you're passionate about running it and growing it and nurturing it. Any business is the same. It doesn't matter what you're selling. So I didn't know what company I wanted to own. I just knew that I wanted to be my own boss and run my own company. I got an opportunity through a friend of mine, Jay Wilson. And the way I found this is I've taken probably since I was 16 or 15, I've probably taken 150 business owners or successful people to lunch and just said, hey, do you mind if I talk to you about this? How did you make it happen? Where was your big break? And finally I took Jay Wilson, a friend of mine, to lunch and had that very same conversation. And he said, man, I'll keep my ear to the ground for you. 9 months later, he called me. He said, I want you to meet my good friend, Greg Meadows, who owns U.S. Industrial. It's a metal fabrication machinery business. And he has a key guy retiring that's been kind of his right-hand guy for 41 years. Wow. And so I said, man, I don't know anything about metal fabrication machinery, but I can figure anything out. But so anyway, I met with Greg, and Greg and I worked a deal over the next 9 months where I'd buy 25% of the company and come in as his partner. And so we did that, and pretty much on day one, I was running the company. So I've never run a company fully, and I know nothing about the machinery that we sell. So it was definitely dropped into the deep end pretty quick. I went outside into the warehouse, spent a lot of time out there with our technicians. We have a great team, great staff of technicians that know everything there is to know about these machines. So I just was very inquisitive and learned very quickly. But the transition I was primarily selling. I mean, I was really dropped in at a weird time. Supply chain was an issue. I was in the red on my investment. I was coming home kind of going, I've screwed our family over, babe. We've been waiting on an opportunity. You backed me on this, and I've let greatest time to buy a business, actually, because I was forced to learn it pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about importing. I learned that pretty quickly, learned the machines, but my primary role was selling the machinery. So I was on the phone all the time. Only recently, so that was 4 years ago when I came on, and I had an opportunity to buy the rest of the company in May of last year, which I did. And it's been great. Huge set of challenges. Putting a CEO hat on sounds great. You know, the title sounds great, but there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with it. I'm in a group called Vistage that's helping me grow in that role. So I've never been the smartest guy in the room, so I always take advice from everybody else.
Well, and I think that's so important to be successful in business. You talked about your networking. You know, you were taking business owners to lunch. You know, always knowing that, hey, there's information that I can gain from someone else, that someone else has approached these problems, have been through these trials, and taking that info for them and knowing, like, hey, like, there is a path forward. Yeah, there are going to be lean times, you know, especially when you start. But, you know, if you're able to persevere, put your head down, and not necessarily being a business owner, you can't look at, you know, the moment. You got to look at the big picture and say, where are we going? You know, how can I lead this ship and get it to the place it wants to go? And, you know, it's not for everybody. You know, you got to have a strong stomach and a short memory. And if you have those two things, I think you can be successful in business.
Along with the networking piece, you've got to be able to ask for what you want. If you can't ask for what you want, you're never going to get it. You know, you asked your friend, you were like, hey, this is what I want to do. And he said, I'll keep my ear to the ground for you. Lo and behold, what was it, 9 months later? Mm-hmm. That's a pretty quick turnaround as far as those kinds of things go. You know, some people wait their whole lives for that opportunity. Yeah. And you got it, you seized the moment, and now you're here. So that's all. Yeah, I love that, because we preach networking on this podcast. We always tell our listeners and anybody that we meet, really, like, what's the secret to being successful in business? And it's like, dude, meet people. Yeah. You've got to meet people. You've got to network. You've got to build relationships with people, and not just superficial, surface level. We were talking with a guy on a past podcast, not just a picture and then you leave. Like, it's got to be an actual relationship. You're reaching out annually, semi-annually, quarterly, whatever it is. Get a lunch, get a coffee. It takes 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and $10 to buy two people a cup of coffee. I mean,
it helps if you have a genuine interest in that person. And I've just always been genuinely interested in people that have been successful and made it happen themselves. Yeah. And I say made it happen themselves. Everybody has had help along the way, and I'm no different. I've had a lot of help. Like I said earlier, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I think that's my greatest asset, is that I understand that. Sure. I'm not afraid to ask for help.
No, that's a good word. That's a good word. Well, tell us a little bit about the customers and the companies that you serve and the massive machinery that U.S. Industrial sells.
Yeah. So we sell metal fabrication machinery. Our two primary products are hydraulic press brakes and hydraulic shears. So hydraulic shears cut metal plate, and press brakes bend metal plate into different angles. We have 8 different product lines, and we sell to everybody. That was kind of the thing that I found most interesting about the company, was the customer base. We have Jimmy's Welding and Fabrication in, Dothan, Alabama, all the way to, we just got Tesla as a customer. We have Apple out in California.
Oh, wow.
Toyota, Nissan, Ford, Mack Trucks. I mean, huge corporations. NASA, which is one of my personal favorites.
That's awesome.
And Tito's Vodka. actually is a customer.
Is that another personal favorite?
That's another very personal favorite. I like not only doing business with them, but their brand.
Yeah.
I've had quite a bit of it.
Good product.
Yeah, great product. But yeah, I just found that very interesting that we have been able to sell to that many people, and we're known as kind of the value brand out there. So we offer an inexpensive machine that has quality behind it, and we offer post-sale support as well.
Well, tell our listeners a little bit about, so you've worked in the sales world for a long time. The skills that you were using in the sales world as far as doing bonds, insurance, how did that transition to the industrial side of things?
Well, everybody needs to sell. I'd say it translated well, but in this role, there's a famous book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You have to change your mindset a lot. So like I mentioned earlier, coming out of a sales role into the CEO role is extremely challenging. It's just a whole new set of challenges and obstacles to overcome. I'd say I've learned a ton in every career that I've been in. And I mentioned that earlier. I would never throw shade on any one of my jobs that I've had because I've learned so much.
Some truth to that there. So, well, Dakota, you want to give us a thought on your bourbon?
Yeah, man. So the Monk's Road, the rye, their straight rye whiskey, I thought it was a little too smooth, even for 100 proof, which was surprising to me. But I guess that's just the rye in it. It's got a nice flavor though, and it leaves a good aftertaste. It's not like once you finish it, you're not like, ugh, that was rough. You know, you want another sip. So I'm gonna go 8.8.
8.8. So we're close there.
Yeah.
So, was good. I almost said bourbon. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what it is. Well, back to the podcast. Well, a lot of our listeners ask us about, especially in the CEO role or the business owner, what's work balance or work-life balance look like for you?
Different on different days. I have a hard thing that I've been struggling with for about 2 weeks. I haven't been sleeping very much, waking up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, getting very used to the cracks in my ceiling. We know each other pretty well now. Sometimes
yet?
No, actually,
okay.
I haven't named them yet.
You're still sane, so that's
yeah. I haven't lost it. No, some weeks are, you're on top of the world and everything's clicking and everything's firing. And then, you have a hard topic come up or a hard conversation you have to have with an employee or just something like that that you struggle with. And work life, the life part definitely suffers in that. We had a speaker, not to bring up Vistage again, but I've been a member of it for actually not long, a couple months. And we had a speaker that talked a lot about this, how to be your best version of yourself all the time. And he's an acting coach, basically, and great guy, but he's been on some big movies and coached a lot of serious actors. And he just said, man, every time I come home, I have a sign in my garage that says it's showtime. And that reminds me that I just need to take a minute and go inside and be the best version of myself as a dad. And that I literally do that now. I literally get home and I say it's showtime in my car before I get out. But it is hard. Yeah. It is hard. It's taxing.
Well, and I think you have to have that to be successful as a business owner. You got to have some downtime. If you're constantly in the business, I think eventually that's going to kind of run you into a ditch, run you down. I think everybody has those moments where you wake up at 2:30 a.m. My big thing is when I have a thought, I email myself. So I'll wake up at 2:30 and send myself an email and go back to sleep. Yeah. But it's, or I'll forget if I don't do that. Mm-hmm. But, you got to have things that work for you, but you also have to get out of the business. If you're constantly thinking about it, I think it would drive you crazy. And for all our listeners that are listening, I think that that's some great information to take away from this, to have the time where you're also working on yourself, talking about getting involved in the groups and things like that. That's going to make sure you're going to be able to go long term in the business.
I saw this guy on LinkedIn one time. I think his name is Dan Go, and he's a fitness influencer guy, and he gives some great actionable tips. And he was like, you're a 15-minute walk away from clarity. And he was like, he always preaches the benefits of just like taking a brief walk. What's 15 minutes of your day just to give you a little bit clearer mind, a little bit more clarity on what's going on, and just to clear it. You know what I mean? And just like get outside, enjoy some trees, some nature, some birds singing or something. Just something different from the same monotonous stuff that you might have to deal with on day in and day out.
Yeah, and I think that, speaking on that, what do we typically do? If we're not working, we pick our phone up and you start scrolling.
Do something mindless.
You're not getting out and actually thinking.
They call it doom scrolling now.
Yeah.
That's what the kids are calling.
Doom scrolling.
Yeah.
So that's the first time I've heard
That's
this.
the worst thing you can do when you can't sleep at night because it just stimulates you and it keeps you awake.
For sure.
Read something.
Yeah.
Just read, and that'll put you back to sleep.
That's a good word too. Well, tell us a little bit about the challenges facing your industry in the next few years. What do you foresee?
Great question. Right now, it's political uncertainty right now. We do import our machines from overseas. We have some tariffs in place with China. That's changed recently and just changed yesterday again. So a month ago, we had a 10% tariff increase. Our current president woke up at 3 a.m. and couldn't sleep. So he went to Truth Social and said, we're going to do another 10%. So just dealing with those things as they come, and just the uncertainty of and lack of clarity from, politics right now about where we're going to be. That's really hard right now. Also, just geopolitical risk with, and I guess tariffs would fall under that, but geopolitical risk with China. I traveled to China. I was there in November, and China's interesting to me. There's the communist part of it, and then there's this undercurrent. There's like a parallel economy in China where you have a bunch of private business owners that are capitalistic, just like us. And all of our factories that make our product fall into that second category, the capitalist, private owned. And these are hardworking people. It's tough from a geopolitical standpoint. They're wanting to know. They're asking me what's going to happen. And I'm like, I don't have Donald Trump's number. Yeah, we don't have lunch on a daily basis. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm in the same boat as you. I'd say that is the biggest challenge. And then also we have an aging population of business owners in my industry. These guys are metal fabricators. It opens up an opportunity because we do have a younger generation coming in that wants more tech and wants kind of bigger and better, sexier machines. They care what they look like, things like that. So as long as you're positioning yourself well for the next generation, I see it as an opportunity, not a threat.
Well, good word there. Tell our listeners a little bit about, so if they're looking to maybe purchase some fabricating machinery or find out more about your company, what is the best way for them to get in contact with you?
usindustrial.com is our website, and we list everything on there, all 8 product lines. There's an About Us section, or just call me, and I'd be happy to jump on the phone and have a conversation with anybody about it.
Well, what's your thoughts on the bourbon?
I'm a fan of this. I'm not a huge whiskey drinker. I'm a wine drinker and partial wine collector, but this is, I think, very good. As far as rating it, I don't know. You were 9.0.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Tyler has to average these, so make it really difficult.
I'm going to go a 7.3572.
There we go.
It kind of feels like a 8.3574.
That's too high, but
Yeah. So we're going to go at 8.3. Okay. So Monks Road,
You're the math whiz here.
especially for a rye, was really good. And to all our listeners, however you stream this podcast, if you would please give us a rating and follow us on social media, and we will see you next week. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.